Hi, everyone. Once again, Vince Berghella from Jefferson here in Philadelphia. In terms of AJOG MFM highlights, again with my good friend here, Mhatre. Mo?
Hi, everyone. So nice to see all of you again. Happy New Year. Um, I am Mhatre. I am a maternal fetal medicine attending at Tufts Medical Center, and I'm also the director of the MFM Fellowship Program at Tufts. For those of you who are not familiar with our format, what we do is we go through all of the articles from this past month's issue, and we select 4 articles that we wanted to highlight for today, those who've had rigorous study design and also will impact how you may counsel or manage patients in the clinic or on the labor floor. And we try to select articles that we think will be helpful for not only our MFM colleagues, but also generalists, family medicine doctors, midwives, advanced practitioners, pretty much anyone who will be caring for obstetrics patients. We are going to be using visual abstracts to give our highlights, but feel free to look over the articles in detail on the on the AJOG MFM website. And we're going to get started with the first one, which is early hospital discharge after cesarean delivery, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. So we know that at least in the United States, most people are discharged around 3 to 4 days after a C-section, but there is some data to suggest an earlier discharge may be improving the psychological well-being and getting families back home. And there's not great data on the optimal timing. So this study looked at evaluating early discharge about 24 to 28 hours after a cesarean versus later, meaning at least 48 hours after cesarean. And their primary goal was to look at the maternal readmission within 6 weeks, but they also evaluated neonatal readmissions as well as maternal postpartum complications. They looked through 7 databases and found 7 RCTs to be included. And in this study, they found that between having an early discharge versus later discharge, there was no significant difference in maternal readmissions or complications. And there was, however, an increased rate of neonatal readmissions and jaundice. So while it doesn't seem to affect the maternal side, it is mindful that if you are considering this earlier timing for discharge, to be mindful for having close neonatal follow-up.
Let me chime in as well, Mo, and Happy New Year to everyone. So happy that so many of you follow this. We did this actually with a student from Lebanon who came and rotated with us, and took us a long time because these studies are very heterogeneous. When you look at 48 hours, like discharge after 2 full days, the maternal and neonatal remission rates are the same. So I think 48 hours is fine, keeping them 2 days, which will be a change because most of us, like you say, discharge maybe at day 3 or 4. So in low risk, uncomplicated pregnancies, not the ones maybe that you and I see that much, but the ones without hypertension, diabetes, etc. 48 hours is fine. There were some trials looking at earlier discharge, and basically the point is, it's fine to send a patient home even 24, 48 hours after C-section, but the baby needs to be checked the next day. The baby needs to have like an outpatient check to make sure the bilirubin is down and the baby's doing well. And if that's done, then that's okay. So message is 48 hours, fine. And if you want to send earlier, just make sure the baby gets in a little earlier. This next one is really Dr. McCurdy's, dream. She was one of our fellows and planned to randomize women with a BMI of 35 or more to Cohen, which is in the top kind of scheme, kind of a straight line between the ischial spines, usually above the pannus in somebody with a pannus, versus a Pfannenstiel incision, which is usually, you kind of in the crease. You retract above the pannus, and then you go just above the symphysis pubis in the crease if you have a pannus. It was her fellowship project. It was, she didn't recruit all that she planned to, but it is the only randomized study looking at the type of incision. We always, hotly debate this. And at the end, the long story short is that really they had similar outcomes, the 72 patients that were randomized, but the Cohen incision at a little bit longer time skin to delivery, a little bit lower 5-minute APGAR, and lower physician satisfaction. So, you know, we weren't biased. We were open. I will probably still seem to prefer Fanasteel under the Panus, but if people wanted to do a coin about the Panus, that's fine. The interesting part to me was that the Fanasteel inside the Panus wasn't associated with more wound infections and complications. People are always afraid that it's kind of more humid in there and more prone to infection, which we did not find in this randomized trial.
Fantastic. All right. The next one came out of a study group at Yale, which was evaluating lidocaine patches after cesarean sections. This was an RCT. These were patients who were undergoing either their first, second, or third cesarean delivery. And they were randomized to either having a daily lidocaine patch placed just superior to the incision versus having a placebo patch that they were actually able to get created for this study. And then what they were doing was evaluating on a visual analog scale. They were evaluating the pain scores every day from day 1 through 4 and evaluating if there was any difference between the two groups. Ultimately, in this particular study, there was no difference in pain scores throughout their entire postoperative stay. It was very well liked. They had blinded all of the patients, and all the patients who had surveyed, the majority of them would opt for use of the patch in the future, but they didn't see a difference. The one thing I would say that was interesting about this study and this institution is it's their typical protocol to have tap blocks after all cesareans, which I don't think is routine in every institution. And it is possible that the lack of a difference that they saw in these groups, maybe because the patients already had a tap block, and so the lidocaine patch as an adjunct wasn't adding much. So, I'm not sure if anyone's interested in pursuing this, and if they're not doing tap blocks in their institution, to see if maybe there's a difference in that case as well, which may improve postoperative pain without including more opioids and having some non-opioid pain regimen.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And also, I saw that there was a little bit of a trend for better outcomes. It wasn't significant with a lot of So because of those two reasons, the tap block and the trend, it'd be nice to see even larger trials because the results are actually interesting and provocative and everything.
Exactly.
It's so great for me actually to look back at these articles after they get accepted and reread them again. And thanks again for choosing the ones for this month, Mo. They're very interesting, including this last one. Dr. Uma Reddy and colleagues, this is a secondary analysis of the famous ARRIVE trial. I've been looking actually for this data for a long time, always asked Dr. Grubman, and I was pleasantly surprised I submitted it to AJOG MFM. Just so happy that we're publishing such important research. Like in the ARRIVE trial, these were low-risk nulliparous patients undergoing inductional labor at 39 weeks, and basically they looked at the ones that got oxytocin induction, which were, as you see, almost 3,000 patients. Some got more than 2 milliunits per minute in terms of start and increase, which is the mid to high dose range. The majority got low dose, so 2 milliunits per minute starting or increased dose. And basically, they didn't see too much of a difference, except that not surprising, the more oxytocin, that mid to high dose oxytocin was associated with shorter duration of labor, like in any, such comparison. They downplayed the fact that there were higher rates of self-limited neurovasculatory support. They thought that there was pretty minor and kind of time-limited, but they basically concluded that both those induction methods, low-dose oxytocin or mid to high-dose oxytocins, are fine, and there wasn't one that was really much better. If 1 hour less shorter labor you think makes a difference for the particular patient, then maybe mid to high dose seems to be safe. And again, just saves you about an hour with their analysis. So very interesting data. Maybe you want to close it off, Mo?
Yeah, so that wraps up for this month's issue. We hope you enjoyed it. And again, you can feel free to look at the articles in detail on the AJOG MFM website. And stay tuned for our January highlights coming up in a few weeks. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mo. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.